We're going to look at the 2025 Computer Science Leaving Cert project, and I'm going to show you two example solutions. Well, they're more just ways you could go. I'm going to show loads of different ways over the next few videos of what things you can do. It's really nice coursework in that there are many different projects you could come up with, and this is just two particular ways of doing it, and hopefully it'll kind of give you an idea of what you should be kind of ending up with. And I've labeled some of these to help you understand what you're ticking off along the way. So I'm going to do two examples here. The first one is using Python Flask. So that's basically anybody who wants to do web development, but they're not, let's say, a fan of JavaScript. They'd rather just get Python to do the web logic. That's what this does. It's a good idea for people to do this, I suppose, for leaving cert, because you end up practicing a lot of Python, which you got to do in your exam anyway. So, you know, this might be worth learning a little bit of Python Flask rather than using JavaScript. You have to use a tiny bit of JavaScript anyway, just to tick a box. But look, let's get started. So this is my my graphs. I'm supposed to do two graphs. I've done three here. You can see I hover over it. I've also got a suggestions page here where, you know, I can type, what should I add in? I want like a picture like more doggies, what year, and what would I rate something. The whole point is you have a web form that enters in some data. You could have like a login and password or whatever you want to do, but you notice that I'm trying to do like float, I'm trying to do integer, I'm trying to do string, something like that, you know. I press submit, and there it is down there. Look, there's the summary of the data. That's ticking A or 2C. Finally, recommendations. I look at the range and I say, if it's this, I recommend that. And that's it. All right. So two graphs are all that's required. I'm doing three, just be sure. I've got my suggestions and my recommendations. That's the project. Very, very doable. Totally fine. So let me just show you. That was the Python Flask version of it. I'm going to just stop that one for a moment, and I'm going to run the other guy, which is like a kind of more JavaScripty one. So a little bit more JavaScript in this project. This is Pirates versus global warming. I've got three graphs. The last one I did Plotly for the graphs. This module I'm using Pygal, but very much the same. Okay, I'll just reset the size of this guy. So I'm going to scroll down. You can see I've got a bar chart. They have to be interactive, as you can see here. And I'm putting in lots of advertising throughout my project saying, this is where my web form is, ticking A or 2. I can see my data types, right? The three, a float, a string, a bool, you know, this sort of thing. And then it gets submitted back down there. I've averaged this just as part of the summary. We probably don't need to necessarily. And my recommendations here, I think I probably went a bit overboard with these ones. I've got three recommendations. I looked at this case for the R squared value, how good a fit it is, if it's kind of close to a straight line. And then I said, if it's not at all near that, I recommend you make it more like a better fit, you know? So yeah, that's it. So there's two websites, and hopefully you can see what you're roughly supposed to end up with, but your project could be on anything at all. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go just for a more kind of granular look through advanced requirements and basic requirements and relate them to the examples here, like where does that fit in? Okay, so if I look, I'm going to scroll down here past all this. This will give you some ideas. This is the actual task. The main thing you need to take from this is it says publicly available data set. So you can't just get like a ruler and a ball and drop it and create your own data, or get a Raspberry Pi or something like that and pull in data from it, right? So collect and prepare the data. I'm gonna go like, if you go to like the CSO, you'll find loads of data. Just when you are pulling down the stuff from this, just make sure that you're only selecting one of the columns for the years and avoid quarters. Like, you choose your data wisely here, right? So yeah, I'm going to go into more detail in basic requirement 1, how to do that. I'll just do a video on basic requirement 1. Is that all right? Just to keep this one roughly 5 minutes ish. So that's what you do in there. You're going to extract the data from that using a Python program. So that's what I've done here. As you can see, if I scroll down, I've got a little bit of code that reads some data, might clean some stuff out of it, and down here it processes it. And then the second one, very, very similar looking thing. I say that's my oh, actually this is advanced requirements, so let me find the basic requirements. Look at these ones first. So I've got a file called dirty data, and I'm just taking out a load of junk and symbols. I'm saving as a clean one, right? So that's basic requirement 1. Then the next bit is some data analytics. So you've got to have it says at least 2 different basic visualizations. So do 3 just to be sure. Bar chart line, they can't be the same. So not 3 pie charts, each representing different key aspects of the data set. And that's why I said up above, your ideal data set wants to be like 1 column of years. It doesn't have to be years, right? But it makes it so much easier if you have years along the x-axis, because then you can have a progress. You can do loads of graphs if you've got years as one of the columns, right? So it's just make it easier for yourself. And then another 2 columns after the years needs to be numerical data if you want to keep all your options open, like scatter plots and that sort of thing. So avoid the things, where it could be like Henry, Jane, Henry. That's not really numerical. That makes sense. Numbers are easier to work with. So the perfect data set would be a load of years in 1 column, then a load of numbers, maybe 4 or 5 columns of numbers, and then as for how many, I'd say like 20, because when you clean away and strip off stuff, you don't want to clean so much that you have nothing left of your data. So that's that. So I've said my 3 line charts or 3 types of charts, and that's just looking, going to the PyGal website, PyGal, PyGal, like this, and you can see, look, there is a normal, that's a nice one, or maybe this one, or maybe that one, or you go radar. I don't even know what a radar does, but like, it's an option. You'll get marks for it if you have a radar chart. So yeah, just pick 3, I suppose. So different charts, but one thing there to watch out for, if you have X versus Y, you cannot, as far as I am interpreting this project, go X versus Y bar chart, X versus Y line chart, X versus Y. You have to have, it says on, and I think it says different key, what's the word here? Oh yeah, representing different key aspects of the data. Now, how I would read that would mean if you have columns in a spreadsheet, the years, and then X, Y, Z, you would have one graph, X versus Y, another graph, X versus Z, and another graph, Y versus Z. It just can't be the same chart or the same data on 3 different charts, right? So each one should be a different type of chart, but also you're graphing one thing against another. Those things as well should be different, right? So that's why, and you can see, so for data analytics and visualization, God, I said those would be 5 minutes. Well, I'm only to number 2. Well, whatever, 10 minutes. So ensure each one is labeled with axis and like people will be like, oh yeah, chart, sure, basically does that, does it? But does it? Have you got titles on yours? Because I can't say what the granular marking scheme will be for exactly this to be, but if I had to create a bell curve of grades and half the students have not bothered with an axis or legends, or where they were asked for it, it says where appropriate. So yeah, I think they'll be fine. I would expect anytime if you've got years at the bottom and then you have 3 different columns or 3 different data sets going over time. So like if you were going goals scored for 3 different players, you would expect a legend with like the players' names appear. I think that's what I mean. It's like where appropriate, right? So you can see in my data here. Oh, it's actually it can't reach because I was serving it as a server. So let's do this one because this one's currently running. I can only run it one at a time and Tawny. So look, there we go. That's those being ticked, and as I said, they are interactive, which is actually the next part. of the requirements is down here for being interactive. So ensure that it's got the labels. I have labels in mine. Now, data structures such as lists. Okay, you will end up probably accidentally using these anyway. So I would pretty much ignore 2C until the end of your project when you've got it all done, and just look back and make sure that you've got, one of, now just the way I would read this, again, who knows how they're going to exactly interpret it on a granular scale, but like it says lists, so maybe like a mark, comma, turbals or dictionaries is how I'd read that. God, it's like, I almost need like brackets. So I imagine everyone's going to have lists, and if you're using pandas as data frames, you're probably going to end up with a dictionary there somewhere. I just put that in as a dictionary in my website. I have it here down somewhere. Basically, if you see curly brackets, like see this, that's a dictionary. All right, well done, you use a dictionary. If you see square brackets, well done, you use a list. All right, and if it's a list of things inside the round brackets, which are probably less common to be using at leaving cert coding, that's what that is there. Okay, so square brackets, round brackets, and dictionaries. And I say round brackets, I mean not like print. I mean it's basically this is a list which is harder to change, and I mean, as long as you've got dictionaries and lists, you're probably fine. But look, if you're going for H1, just make sure you got it all. Don't take any risks. Create a basic interactive okay, that's make a website. All right, an information system. They have to say that because they don't want to say iPad app, Android app, website, web app. So the whole, just one name for all of those things is like an information system, something with a user interface and like some back-end database, right? So you can just say website in your head. When you see that, just think website. That's what it mostly is, some kind of web app. Web-based interface, yeah. So you've got that, when that's what that website is, and display the data visualizations you created. So I've put some graphs on my website, right? So I get marks for actually doing the graphs up here, but I might not have got as far as the website. But when you put those graphs onto a website, then you get the marks for this bit. Now, you want to make sure that if you're using PyGal or Plotly, Plot Library, you will tick this box automatically, probably. Matplotlib, I'm not sure if you can interact with it as easily. Sometimes you can. Yeah, I feel like just use PyGal or Plot Library, Plotly. So that's what I use for mine. I'll just show you where that is. Look, you see here, I've got PyGal for this particular one, and for this one, I'm using Plotly. They're both give the mark. So whatever one you like to use, they're cool. I mean, you can get different skins. You can get a cool cyberpunk for PyGal I've seen before. It's pretty nice. So almost there. Advanced requirement 2. That's your suggestion. Now it says here you must use some little bit of JavaScript. So when I do the advanced requirement video, I'll go into this in great detail. But for now, what this is it is a web form, which yes, will have a little bit of JavaScript in it, but it's like a block or two, and you've got weeks to do this. So look, you can figure out how to use this much JavaScript. It's not so bad, I'll take you through that. Yeah, so let's go. It should have 3 different data types. So look how nice and easy. I said it's got integer 1, float 2, string 3, Boolean 4. I mean, what else is there? Lists, dictionaries. Like, it's kind of hard to input a list or dictionary. So I'm sure maybe someone can think of a way of doing that. But I've got 4. So if they ask for 2 things, give them 3. If they ask for 4 things, give them 5. It just means that if there's any debate and you're on the border and there's a discussion about whether one of them gets the marks, that argument is very quickly put to bed, because like you've got another one after that. So the discussion is over very quickly. You just get all the marks. But don't do like 20 of them. You don't get any more marks for doing another 90. There's a maximum of 27 marks for this project. For the actual project part, there's 90 marks when you include the report. So if you do an amazing project, you don't get 30 marks, you still just get 27. The way this is like difference between, you know, total disaster, Goldilocks zone in the middle, and amazing in the bell curve of grades is who has left stuff out of it. It's omissions, right? So as long as you've danced the dance and you've got all of the things right and they're in there, you'll get all 27 marks. There's no reason you can't, and lots of people do every year. It happens all the time. The data should be validated and stored in a database or file. So you'll notice mine is validated. Valid basically means if you type in the word toast for your age, it goes, you are not toast years old. That's not even a number. Okay, that's validation. That's built into the JavaScript form. Okay, you can do it in Python as well, I suppose. And stored in the database or file. Now you could store that when it says database or file. So your options there are what, like you could write it to a CSV file. You could use something like Firebase or some kind of online storage, but the way I've done it, the web form is I've written it just to the local storage in your browser. So you know, but like you have to clear cookies or clear your cache. Chrome has local storage in it, you know, so it'll now technically if someone tries to access your website from another country, they won't see, you know, those entries down here because this is just stored locally on your computer. But it is still a database, you know, it's up there. If you hit F12, you can go and you can actually look at the values and stuff like that. Anyway, so that's totally fine. And I use that basically because JavaScript needs very few permissions to, you know, add stuff to Chrome, because that's what it was built to do, is to be in a browser and do web stuff. Whereas if you ask JavaScript to write to an actual CSV file, it gets tricky. And actually that's what we end up doing, having to do here later on, is add code to help with that. So some aspects of collected data should be summarized and displayed through the information system. So can you see where I've done that here? This is it, the summary. So I'm basically taking whatever they type it in and I'm just storing it as local values in Chrome. And then I'm saying, hey, HTML, could you just show, like put in a table, all those local values that I've stored? And it does it. That's it. So again, I'll go into the actual how that works later on, but this is just so you understand kind of your end goal, where you're going. And lastly, create a separate area for recommendations. Yeah. So like, for example, this one here at the very bottom, I was getting some kind of CORS violation. I didn't know what a CORS violation was. It's nothing to do with the band until like a week ago. So apparently Chrome has a security thing where it doesn't like your browser messing with your actual folders on your PC, probably for good reason, right? Because that's a great way to get a virus. So it's just like, no, I'm gonna kick up a fuss if you try and do that. It's fine accessing websites, but not your local PC. So the little hack around that is just add this little snippet of code, press go, and magically all of those little pictures and CSV files that are in the same folder as your code are now technically a website. And Chrome is fine accessing data from websites. So there you go. It's like, I can't touch it, it's not a website. And then you say, what if it was a website? And it's like, oh, you sneaky guy. Yeah, there you go. So I'm not really sure how that works. You know, it just makes a little local server and whacks it up and gets around it that way. So there you go. All right. And that is pretty much everything, isn't it? Yeah, the recommendations. Oh, I should say, well, that's how I got around the problem with the recommendations. But what the actual recommendations are, in this one, advanced requirements, I'm using the range. Okay, so like you can see, I just put in pizza as a Flask test to make sure Flask is working okay. So don't think that your type of pizza has anything to do with website. That was just a debugging test. But yeah, that's to send the recommendations. Where do the recommendations come from? Look how very simple it is. I get the range here. I got the mean for the crack, but like I'm using the range. What is the range? It's the max minus the min, right? So that the top minus the bottom is the range of data. And then I say, if the range is too big, blah, blah, blah. This is literally Goldilocks again. If the range is too small, blah, blah, blah. If the range is just right, this is the value of recommendation, right? And then I just get recommendation. I use Python Flask to splash it up onto the website. So it looks at the data and gives them the appropriate recommendation. And that is AOR3, Advanced Requirement 3. And then we are all done. So that is the advanced requirements and basic requirements with 2 examples. So what I'll do now in the next video is we'll just start off with the basic requirements and go through exactly how to find your data, clean it, and save it as some clean data and tick that box.